Francis Elegay, you're recognized for your 5 minutes.
Good day once again to the testifiers. I want to jump right in. First of all, I want to speak to the National Guard. One of the things my colleague was speaking to you about in regards to your readiness in the last 10 years, and I had that down as one of my questions. Now, 10 years ago, were you up to par so that where you are right now is where you should be part of the national standard? Because coming 10 years forward, but still not being up to par, is still a concern for me. So could you let me know if you guys are on national standard or where you should be as opposed to just being 10 years ahead where you were from before?
Great question, Senator. So today we are ready, relevant, and responsive member of the Joint Force. We are deploying personnel into combat operations. We're along the U.S. borders, and we're supporting training exercises here in the Caribbean. We are not even up to standard. We're exceeding the standards today.
Excellent.
Thank you.
That is what I would love to hear. Also, National Guard. Several years ago, we had stories coming out of some major sexual harassment and some sexual situations happening in the National Guard. Have you guys done everything, or are there still pending situations? Have you cleaned that up? Because, as you know, that was a looming situation over the National Guard where people were very concerned about that. Not only the members, but people also interested in joining the National Guard.
Great question once again, Senator. We, to this date, have not received any prosecutable evidence that the Virgin Islands Police Department can arrest and put someone into custody for any allegations that remain in the Virgin Islands Guard. We have transitioned to make sure that everyone understands that we are an organization that's under the Army and Air Force that ensures that everyone is treated with dignity and respect, and we are swift to act and respond to any allegations, do investigations, and provide the right information to law enforcement to arrest.
Okay.
And
thank you.
No.
Have you guys cleaned up the situation that was reported several years ago? That's what I asked.
Yes, but unfortunately, that question is what was reported has to be validated by evidence and be arrested. So yes, we have. So currently, we do not have any issues with the National Guard.
Okay.
So we do not have any cases in the National Guard. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for clearing that up. Director Joshing. If a hurricane were to hit right now, tell me how ready are you?
Well, we have been working for the last 2.5 years with integrated agencies. We will respond to the same effort of success we did under COVID-19. We had federal forces, we had local forces working together. So that is that's the National Incident Management System, NIMS. No matter what it is, hurricane or otherwise, we will support, based on declaration Governor Bryan will do, just as well as we did under COVID.
Okay, the federal government, in working with you, how do they feel your performance is?
Last year we had 19 initiatives we focused on in our capstone exercise. Right now we're reevaluating and looking at probably about 11 of those this year to go forward. The main effort, I think the gap we have identified is called continuity of operations, or COOP. Each agency should have a plan, regardless of whether it's a legislature or a private sector government agency, to be able to respond if you have to lose your physical location.
Okay. 911 system in regards to text messaging. 2 years ago, I asked you guys about that. Yeah. Then you told me it was going to be implemented 6 months, a couple months ago. What's the status of that?
I'm going to get back to you, Senator, because I know we upgraded the phone system. It gave us some additional features. That particular feature, I don't have an answer on right now, but I'll get back for you.
Marketing and advertising to the public. That is one of the things that's ridiculously important. So we do live in a hurricane zone. The public needs to consistently know what you're doing, how to get in contact, what's the procedures, what are the shelters, etc. What are you guys doing on a continuous basis to make sure that the public is aware of your services and how they're going to be activated and utilized during the state emergency?
Well, we have media. We work with a Facebook page. We work with outreach with websites. We do a lot of the radio interviews. Last year, every week we would go on radio stations and talk about preparedness, what to do for individuals and response capability.
So you were on the radio 52 times for the year last year?
30 seconds.
During the height of hurricane season, pretty much between
What?
the 15 August to 15 October.
Well, for me, I like to be prepared in advance. And if you keep putting things in people's head and not waiting for the time frame to happen and then activate then, you know, have you guys thought of a concerted effort to really make sure that, because this is a continuous part of our lives every year, that you have an effort to make sure this is part of people's everyday lives?
Yes.
To understand.
Yes, we do. We participate in the National Hurricane Preparedness Week, which is in June, and there's also National Preparedness Month in September. We do a lot of outreach activities for that. We will be at Agricultural Fair over on St. Croix. We'll have booths set up, both Office of Disaster Recovery, by FEMA together, and looking at pushing out information, as well as signing up for the Alert VI notification system.
Time.
Mr. Chair, may I ask a final question?
You may.
Thank you. Tsunami system. Give us an update on that and the preparedness, and how well is it working? Any concerns? Is it great? Tell us about what's happening with that.
The tsunami system in general is a combination of messaging. In some cases, it can be sent to your phone. It can be sent email and text if you sign up for the Alert VI system. Additionally, through the integrated public alert warning system called iPause, I can send out messages to anybody who's connected to a cell tower. Those are probably the two key things. And of course, based on the amount of advance notice, we will be activating the tsunami sirens, in which we have 44 of the territory.
So for the public safety, they're repaired, they're in order, they're functioning properly, and there's no issues with them at the moment.
There's tremendous issues with them.
Oh, well, that's what I'm trying to get out of you. Tell me what the problem is.
Well, we have completed the recovery project and the assessments of all 44 of those following Hurricanes Irma and Maria. We're now going through a monthly test of those on the third Thursday of every month and looking for support for feedback on that. We still have to go through and figure out why all of these are not sounding. In some cases, we know that it's a repeater issue, if you will, especially in the island of St. Croix. We've been working with 6 months trying to get the polls up. Right now, as of this morning, we were understanding that poll is supposed to go up next week, which will give us more outreach, but we have a tremendous challenge right now understanding the complexities around those tsunami sirens. So it's just one method by which you get noticed. That's why we also reached about the Alert VI system as a method of communication, as well as VIPD using bullhorns to go around. And of course, if there's an earthquake, similar to you see in Japan, you will know you're in a serious earthquake, because there's no doubt, and you'll have probably about 10 minutes to evacuate to a higher level. You don't need a notice from me. Just you're going to have an earthquake. You can see the water receding, going up. Back in 1867, we had history here. We did have a tsunami that impacted both St. Croix and St. Thomas.
Mr. Chair, I want to thank you for the additional time. Are we having a second
Thank
round?
you.
Or is this it?
No second round, but
Alrighty,
I'm
thank
pretty
you.
sure we'll just do maybe if you have one more something burning. But at this time, Mr. President, Senator Francis, Francis Heilige, you recognize, and then we'll start with Senator DeGraff.
Thank you.
Yes.
My point of inquiry, can you walk me through the process of how do you reach out to the public in order to find these 911 operators, since you're having a difficult time? What's the process? Because
Senator, I'll ask Deputy Philomene to go through the details on that.
thank you.
Good afternoon, Senator. I'm Merlinda Philomene, Deputy Director of HR and Labor Relations. Right now, we utilize our recruitment efforts for the 911 call center operator through the Division of Personnel. We are planning on beefing up our recruitment efforts. Anytime we have outreach activities or outreach events, we advertise for our vacancies for our 911 call center operators, but mainly right now, we go through the Division of Personnel.
So basically, right now, you just deal with personnel. And I
Yes.
could almost guarantee you the majority of the public doesn't. So that's probably one of the reasons why they're not hearing about this. I think from my perspective, maybe you should run an ad on the radio. Television ads are not hard to produce. You know, do a little bit more of that. YouTube ads, they'll pop up on people's phones. Because if you are serious about finding these 14 911 operators for the protection of the people, you have to do a much better job in actually reaching out and not just saying you're going through personnel. That's just my thought process, but thank you.
Thank you, Senator Francis Heilige.
But my one question is to Director Joshin. Essential workers. I know we've had quite a bit of dialogue about them over the last 2 years, and I need to get an update as to what the Vitima is doing in regards to essential workers and partnering with businesses and other private entities to make sure that transition and going through the process of emergencies are top par.
Well, Vitima, again, is a coordinating agency. So, but inside of Vitima, we're not talking about 911, essential workers. We don't have the luxury to go home. We have to come and stay and be part of the workforce. If someone leaves that workforce, then we put the burden on everybody else to step up for that. So that's one challenge we continue to have. But like was mentioned, as soon as someone leaves, and again, we don't sometimes have much advance notice for that, we go through the process of rehiring. Again, we want to go from internal. Additionally, do work with our emergency support function agencies to make sure that when they come to support, especially the EOCs, they have individuals that show up and help and assist and are trained for that. So we do have the meetings constantly. We have education constantly to make sure when a disaster does come up, when we do activate the EOCs, we get representation from each one of those critical agencies.
What is the procedure for that?
I'm referring to the Business Emergency Operations Center, the BEOC. So we have used the 7 community lifelines, primarily through Tropical as a lead, and we have representatives that voluntarily come together based upon challenges in the past to support that communication with the private sector. If we don't have that communication now, when it comes to be a challenge after disaster, you don't have those relationships built. So that's why it's been a great establishment so far for the last couple of years, both on St. Thomas and St. Croix. We're looking for additional support with the operations center. Just like Vitima sets up, there'll be one for the private sector on St. Thomas and one for St. Croix, at which we work together.
And it's successful?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Francis Heiliger, you're recognized for your personal privilege.
Thank you. Good afternoon once again. I just want to quickly, come young man. Mr. Gilpin is my summer intern, and I wanted to give him an opportunity to be introduced here at the legislature. I am a firm believer in the career and technical institute path that they do have in our educational system, and this young man is one of the products.
Afternoon, everybody. My name is Sierra Gilpin. I am a senior at Ivani Dorican High School, and I'll be working with Senator Francis Heiliger until April.
Nice.
Great.
So I just wanted to thank you for giving me this opportunity, because our children definitely are the future of this Virgin Islands.
Thank you. But what would he like to do upon completion of high school?
When I finish high school, I am planning to join the Marines and study engineering, mechanical, computer. I'm not sure yet, but that is my field of interest.
Okay, that's why you're starting to cut the sides of your hair. You can cut the rest later. All righty, thank you so much. And like we told the others as well, today is we have the Department of Justice and the Bureau of Corrections before us. So we don't want to see you guys heading in their direction unless it's for a career path to be an attorney in the Department of Justice or to take over the directorship or the warden position at the Bureau of Corrections, okay? All right, all the best to you. Thank you. All right, and if you need anyone's assistance, please don't hesitate to reach out to any one of us, okay? All right, thank you. Senator Francis Heiliger, you're recognized for your 5 minutes.
Thank you. Good afternoon once again. Good afternoon to the people of the territory, to the testifiers. My first set of questions is going to the Attorney General's office. While I was sitting here listening to your testimony, I can honestly say I was very much impressed. I enjoyed all of the things you were talking about. And then it dawned on me, a lot of these things happened under the old AG. And I thought to myself, I still don't know why that woman got fired. Because if you have a testimony that lists all these great things that were accomplished, why was she fired? And that's a major concern for me, but that's not for you to answer. That is why I made sure put in legislation to petition Congress to have that position set up as an elected one. But what I also want to share is when it came to the Epstein case, I'm not sure if you're up to date with this as yet, because I know you just came in. when it came to the Epstein case, it was touched upon that was over $105 million, and you said you received about half of it so far. In that particular case, do you know that when it came to the sexual assault part of it, specifically the amount of monies that is supposed to go towards that to assist with victims of sexual abuse and sexual assault?
Senator, under the Epstein agreement, half of the sale price of Little St. James, the monies would be placed in a trust fund
for that
purpose.
Okay, specifically. You also spoke a little bit about white collar crime. That is a major concern for me because I'm going to be honest. I see we spend a lot of time focusing on individuals in our community that do other crimes, robberies, etc. But white collar crime generates a lot of loss for this community in a way that I don't think we have any type of comparison. It's almost like we gloss over it because it's people in suit and ties most of the time, but you have all the energy to go after the ones on the street corner. And I want to know why we're not having as much focus and emphasis on really trying to beef up that particular section, because you said there were 2 attorneys and 1 left. Can you tell me what the Attorney General's office is doing right now to really try to boost that up to go after those that are committing white-collar crimes?
Senator, we are actively prosecuting white-collar crimes. I don't want to leave that impression out there.
Okay.
We have a very experienced prosecutor who is the director of the white-collar division, and she is, as I say, primarily responsible for prosecuting those cases. We are also looking for another white-collar attorney.
Okay.
The one resigned, and we're seeking to replace that person.
How long ago was that? The other one resigned.
It was during this fiscal year.
Oh, this fiscal year?
Yes.
Okay, I understand that.
Yes. And also we have an investigator and who is dedicated to white collar investigations. Okay. But not only that individual, but all the attorneys and all of the investigators in the SID, they also work to assist in white collar cases. So I just want to know we're actively
well, thank you for clearing that up, because how it initially came across, it seemed as if though we were in need of all of this, but you're saying with your attorneys you do prosecute those as well.
We do. 1 minute.
That. BOC, when you initially came in, I was a big cheerleader because I really loved your testimony. And one of the things you talked about had to do with setting up video conferencing. Was all of that stuff done? Like you said a lot of things at the beginning. Tell us some of the things you were able to get accomplished since you've been here.
Yes, definitely. Video conferencing has been set up. Electronic medical records, like we stated. The inmates can visit with their family from the comfort of their home. Okay. Individuals can put money in their account.
Okay.
What else we have? The telepsych. We have the telepsych, where we have the specialty clinicians could see an inmate.
Okay.
Their telepsych or telemedicine. My God, we have.
Okay. Well, other
distance
question.
learning.
You talked about trying to keep family units together. Do you guys allow for conjugal visits?
Do we allow for conjugal visits?
Yes. Do you?
No, ma'am.
Oh. I asked because you talked about trying to keep the family unit together. So, for some families, that's not a necessary thing.
Right.
So maybe y'all might need to check that out.
Time call.
Just a thought.
Thank you.
Could I
You may conclude, but time was called in the nick of time.
Listen, I'm trying to cover everybody.
You may conclude.
I also wanted to quickly ask you, when I did get a chance to come to one of the tour visits, as well as my staff went on another one, and we did get a lot of reports from employees that they came whispering, and And some of the things they were concerned about overtime pay, they were concerned about the medical wellness of the inmates and getting the necessary equipment and medicine. Has a lot of that stuff been cleaned up, or is this a continuing issue?
A lot of those concerns has been cleared up. I let Mr. Faulkner elaborate even more.
Yeah, the overtime pay issue
Okay.
has been resolved.
Good.
We are now paying our correctional officers the way the rest of the Virgin Islands government pays them
Excellent.
overtime. In terms of well-being and health of inmates, we have nursing staff underpaid, but they do an excellent job. We've also brought in some of the PAFA nurses to beef up and supplement our nursing offerings. So we're offering health services for a longer period of time than before. And we're still looking for other medical professionals to join us, like physicians and psychiatrists and psychologists, but definitely we've beefed up our medical, mental offerings at
I'm
the
happy to
Bureau.
hear that. Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, for the additional time.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Francis Heiliger, you recognize for your 5 minutes, followed by the Senate President.
Good afternoon to the testifiers, people of the
afternoon.
territory. My first set of questions is, I want to talk about money. When it comes to assisting visitors to our shores, what percentage of your services do you find that is utilized with assisting tourists, and how do you recover any monies that is billed to you that you've expounded on helping individuals that have come to these shores?
Larry Levin, Assistant Director of EMS, and that's an excellent question. So what we have realized is that during high cruise ship traffic days, we get a lot of patients from the cruise ships.
Yes.
And they, maybe 9 out of 10 or even all, pay their bills because they have travel insurance, etc. So that's, part of my French, a lucrative market for us. So we are able to kind of exclusively target them for the services that they need from us.
Well, that's a good thing to know, because I've always wondered how we did that. I also want to ask about the EMTs. You shared that those services are still being billed through the hospital?
Yes, Senator.
Okay. Do you have any plans on having them separated?
In
so
this
they will
budget
come-
that is coming up, we're proposing some funding to do that right away.
Okay.
Like we try to do step by step of the integration.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the final step as part of our plan, strategic plan, to do the billing last. Due to the fact they already had all the computers,
Okay.
the personnel doing it, we just think for us to get everything in place first, then start to go to that direction. And it's we got a little problem, but I think it's coming to play right now.
Okay, excellent. Okay, do you have an idea or a plan for how long it would take to transition, or have you made any estimates?
Just Wednesday, me and the HR director was just working on our budget. I would say if we get it in the budget this year, Senator, I would say by October we'll be able to hire, set up our system, and be able to bill for ourselves. Maybe faster.
Keeping some updates. Do you remember they had those fires downtown Wheatley and Fort Milliner? What's the update on those?
Just a couple weeks ago, the fire marshal was given a directive to meet with the ATF to get some kind of discussion going. It's been a long time, and I know it's over and over the same thing with these fires, but most of them have been settled
Okay.
with the insurance companies, and most of them, from the preliminary discussion we've had, they didn't look like any incendiary or most of them have looked like accidental. But we're just waiting for more information to come back to make a final decision and say this is the cause. and
Okay, so
origin.
it's not finalized. You're still
No,
discussing
no.
it. Okay, I'll ask it again when.
So
you
we
come
have it like on our thing, it's under investigation.
Okay, good. I'm glad to hear that. Data-wise, do you guys keep data in regards to comparing on an annual basis the amount of fires, amount of times you go out? Do you make comparisons, say 22 versus 21, and what are some of the mitigating circumstances that each fire might have caused, and what do you do as a body to assist with fire prevention, whether it's through public education or other types of training, et cetera?
So every budget hearing, we provide the legislature with the numbers for each calendar year that we did. One unique thing that our prevention unit does when we have those rash of incidents, what we do is look at the data and look at trending.
Okay.
And things like that. We have the numbers in-house, but if push comes to shove and we see 10 cars burned in Frederickstead last night and we see another 10 burned the next week, we know it's a trend.
Yes.
So we know we have to step up our game, public education, and work with the VI police department.
1 minute.
If you had, and I always ask you this, wish list.
Well,
What was at the top of your wish list? Because we're the one that give you the money to get what you need. So what do you need?
honestly, truthfully, Canigata Fire Station move and Frederickstead Fire Station move, getting me 2 bigger fire stations for those 2 facilities because they are outgrowing themselves.
Okay.
And especially Richmond, where the area is a total bad zone to have it. It's right next to WAPA. When we did the tour, you saw it.
Yes, I was there on the tour.
That's one of my things I would like to do before my career is done. Move Canigata from that location.
Well, some might say wishful thinking, but we could be your fairy godmother. But at the end of the day, where would you like to? Have you done any type of scope as to see potentially where you would like it to go? Because it's one thing telling me what you want, but I like to hear, I want it here because.
So if you know me well, I always planning ahead.
Yes.
So we have piece of property in Anna's Hope.
Okay, Anna's Hope.
Yeah, that is there for the fire service. We have our other piece in Bethlehem. But the Anna's Hope property might be the best location for it, for what we want to do.
For which one? Canigata?
Time.
For Canigata.
For Canigata.
Frederickstead, I'll have to lean on Senator Gittins to send me a piece of his property down there.
I know you just tossed that in the stroke his ego, but it's okay.
No, we've been looking around in Frederickstead, honestly. But I'll yield to Assistant Director Stevens. You want to throw in something, Anna Stevens?
Yes.
Well, and the Frederickstead, we do not have any viable options right now.
Okay.
We are constantly looking for, because we don't want to take the fire station out of the Frederickstead town area, but we don't have any viable options right now.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. Mr. Chair, I appreciate the additional time, and thank you to the testifiers
Thank you,
for
Senator.
your response.